Welcome to Success Your Own Way, a podcast about how real people define and redefine success throughout their careers. Hosted by Tina Shurick and Ifat Rogers, this show features candid conversations with guests who've made intentional choices, navigated change, and built lives aligned to their values. Their guests share their stories as well as strategies and tactics that help them along the way. Tina's a certified coach and a former corporate leader who supports professionals in making confident, values-driven decisions. Ifad is a consultant with a background in food science and engineering, helping people solve complex problems with a practical, no-nonsense approach. Each episode offers inspiration and actionable insights for anyone rethinking what success looks like in their life and how to get there.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Success Your Own Way. As we approach the end of the year, we're diving into a topic that resonates with all of us, and in fact is the namesake of this podcast. And that is, what is success? How do we define it? And how does it change over time?
Yeah. And I think we've heard from a lot of our guests that success is really a concept that evolves over time because it is influenced by our experiences, values, goals, and those could change. So today we'll explore how our definition of success changed and share some of the tips closing the year and starting anew.
Let's start by asking ourselves, what is success? For some, it might be a high-powered career, and we heard that a lot in our episodes. And for others, it could be a happy family life or personal well-being. And in fact, what we heard for the most part is that we start on one end of that spectrum and we move towards the more personal well-being side of things.
Yeah. And we've heard, success is subjective. It is influenced by cultural, societal. We talked to some people, not all of us. I did not grow up in the US. And I think we've even seen some older cultural things that help us define it. So let's hear from a few individuals, a few guests on how they used to define success and how their definition has evolved over time.
Let's start with, we're going to start with Ethan. He described how his career and his definition of success evolved from success and money to being able to support a team.
Yeah.
I think early in career, all of us, early in career, whether it's fair or not, I think a lot of folks define success by promotion and level, and certainly was not immune to it. I would say even right when I was leaving Microsoft, I wasn't immune to it. I kind of felt like I needed to achieve a certain job level or title in order to be defined as a success. But when I kind of took a step back, the things that got me excited weren't, my job level or my title. It was my team having really big impact. It sounds corny, right? This is like the kind of buzzwords of vulnerability and all this. But what was really true is like I felt successful when my team was successful. And I think if you ask most anybody that was on my team and worked for me, did I create the conditions where they could be great at their jobs, where they could try new things, where they could experiment, where they could build? And even at a big company like Microsoft, when you can kind of find those pockets of entrepreneurship where you can go and build a new approach to distribution or a new approach to unlocking a reseller's capability to grow the PC market, their PC business by 2x, which we did. Those are all things that kind of bring a lot of energy. And so success became a lot less about what am I doing in my career. It became a lot more about like, how are we growing our career, and how are the people that are on my team or they're adjacent to my team, or like I got a lot more excitement out of their success than I did out of mine. Like I never wanted to win awards, but I got excited when my team won awards.
Yeah.
I love that Ethan is talking about the team too. I think we've heard a lot about personal success, but his take on at some point success moved from just your personal thing to your team success. So important and such great perspective. We're all going to be more successful together.
That's right.
Whatever connection
Can't go it alone.
I can use here. Next, we're going to hear from Alex. He was one of our latest guests. Actually, he was at our very last episode, and he shared his definition of success.
I'll start with what is it now? So it's, kind of fundamentally being able to provide for myself and my family. But then beyond then, waking up every day and loving what you do. So, getting to love what I do and then making an impact. And then so those are kind of, I think, some of the fundamentals and how it's changed over time. I think it is veered a lot more towards being heart driven. So, when I was in my younger days, success might have more been the career, the accomplishments at work, the tangibles, and not that those don't matter and not that those aren't still success, but the intangibles now are I'd say more so driven of, truly making sure I'm living a life that I believe in and that I feel inspired to do, and that I, am making an impact and trying to make the world a better place.
I love what Alex had to say, because he really kind of hit the nail on the head and recapped a lot of what our guests had talked about, which is moving from the old version, which is, cornerstoned by money and promotion and in a big corporate environment, into something that really fills his life and aligns with his values. So I thought that was a really great take from Alex. Next, we're going to hear from Christine. She was interesting because she flipped our question from what is success to what is a career. And I think her conversation really resonated with me as well, because career can often mean success. And in some cases, you realize that the career isn't what defines success for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think what's changed is maybe not success, but what is a career? That definition changed pretty abruptly as, here I had spent several decades at General Mills, and I had kind of hit a doldrums, a corporate doldrums where, I was still making good money, had decent work-life balance, and still doing interesting things, but no promotion. And this is like the sad story of oh, I went 12 years without a promotion. And, most people would not define that as success. Most people would say, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you find another job? Yeah. At that point, I realized that my job is not my career. It's just a part of my career. And once that aha moment hit me, I started to think, well, there's a lot of things that General Mills, this corporate life, is giving me. It's giving me stable income. It's giving me the work-life balance. What are the other parts of career that I need to build? And that's actually when I started adjuncting and getting more involved in the university. And I also started to do more volunteering. And the reason why I was looking more at volunteering was that that's a great place to practice new skills.
Okay. So I've known Christine for a long time, and we've interacted at General Mills, and kind of watching her before I got to know her, I was envious of her career. She was very well established, and one of the things she actually inspired me to do is thinking a little bit more about what at the time I thought my career was going to be, which is teaching, ideally at a university. And then at some point that definition changed. No, I don't want to do that. And as I'm getting older and I want to share more of my experience, I'm like, you know what? At some point I said, this is no longer a definition of success, but university career agent. If there are any listeners out there, food science departments, I am free for freelancing as an adjunct professor.
I love that. Never too late to switch careers, is it?
No. And a great example of someone that shows that it's never too late to switch career is Mark. I love his aspect on bravery. I think we talked about it at one of the older episodes, but he shares a little bit about how his definition changed, what it looked like before. So let's hear from Mark.
I can probably break it down to three distinct different moments of definition of success. I think when I was up until 27, it meant doing what Tina and my parents expected of us, get good grades, get into college, get a good job, and then work for one company for the rest of our lives. And that was how we were raised. And we went along that path. And then by about 27, I decided that, I needed to forge my own path. I was my own man. I was taking care of myself, and I needed to do it my way at that point. So
I think what's interesting about Mark's story too is that he changed careers many, many times, and that I think maybe can be relatable to many of our guests as well. He tried different things, and he defined and redefined success throughout his adult life, really, and maybe still is.
And there's another thing that inspired me in his episode. We get to it a little towards the end, but it's the don't be afraid to start over and kind of don't start over thinking that you already know everything. So even when I left a 12.5 year career at corporate, it was starting as a consultant and recognizing I don't know anything and I need to learn. And that was really hard. And I think he demonstrated how many times you can do it and become proficient. It's kind of what we said.
Yeah.
It's never too late.
Nope, never too late.
So I think one of the things we heard is around what influence definition of success or just influence on success. And we've seen life events, new responsibilities, change in personal values. I think we heard a lot about changes in personal value and how that influenced success and definition of success.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that you'll see in this next group of clips is how some life events can really impact and help you find and really understand your values, your priorities, and redefine them as a result of something that's going on, either under your control or something that's happening to you externally. So the first clip we're going to hear from with respect to this is from Mei Chi, and she really amplifies the impact of her culture and what impact that has on her definition of success.
Yeah, if I reflect back from being a child to now, it's constantly evolving and changing as we understand life. It's always fluid. And I think I go back to reflecting on my parents and my ancestors and thinking about what success meant for them. And that was surviving on a daily basis. And coming here to America as refugees, their success was to work hard to provide for us so that way we can live the American dream that they didn't get to do in their home countries. And that was always embedded in my mind. And so hence the cultural differences, the pressure to be perfect, to do things that my parents sacrificed a lot for escaping a war. And for me, defining success today, it's always dynamic and it's always a evolving process. And, it really ties back to what are my traditional beliefs and my cultural experiences and how have I continued to pivot that from embracing changes from positive and negative impacts. And for me, it's about reaching milestones, right? And how do you make that tangible and having it clear. And for a long time, I also suffered from sexual abuse from a family member when I was really young. And, it happens quite more often. And I thought I didn't have a voice. And through the mental health support and seeking that piece that was truly a stigma to our communities, breaking those barriers and ceilings, it really helped shape my mental health to get better and to really understand what my impact of living is and having that meaningful life perspective. And so it has changed my way that I can be who I want to be. And that's my success, is having a voice at the table, being invited to the table, and continuously creating systemic changes and changes for the communities and being there for people that don't have that opportunity.
I love Meiji's episode, talking more about culture, something a little different. Both Meiji and I grew up in a different culture, and I think that my definition at the time when I was still in Israel and now is evolving differently. And honestly, if I was still there, probably success would have looked like very differently than the way it does today.
Sure.
So, but one thing that I hope wouldn't change is kind of how having a family changed my definition and really drove the definition of success and my career path.
Yes.
And you talked about it a lot. So
Good.
let's listen to Tina's.
It has changed over time. It has changed significantly over time. When I was in corporate America, success was very professionally based. Even with a young family, I was still very motivated to climb the ladder and get the big, roles and be recognized, win awards. I mean, that was success to me. And looking back, there's a big part of myself that was missing during those times, and it had to do with my connection with people at work, but most importantly, my family, my husband, my 2 kids, my extended family. I wasn't present and I wasn't engaged. And so over the last 2 years, building this coaching business and having more flexibility in my life has become my definition of success. Mm-hmm. And so being, really fiercely guarded of my time and deciding how I want to spend it makes me feel successful.
It's always interesting to listen back to what you talked about, months ago, and it still really resonates with me. I think one of the things that a few of our guests, including myself, have in common is having children a little bit later in life when you have an established career, and really taking that moment to realize that it's going to pass you by, just to make a change. And some of that change can be spurred on by your own instincts and your own values and your own beliefs, and others, changes thrust upon you, whether it be through a layoff or a health event or something going on with your family outside of your immediate family. Just really great to keep that perspective.
Yeah. Definitely the evolution of success over time, because success is not static. It changes as we grow and life circumstances evolve.
Totally. I think the navigation of different phases of life and our goals and what we value does tend to evolve. And we've got many guests who will reiterate that.
Yes.
What you're going to hear about next and hear from next are some guests who really used self-reflection as that impetus to redefine their definition of success. So I'm looking forward to hearing these again.
Yes, let's start with Damon and his definition of success. Success is connecting with people, physical and mental health.
When I was that 22-year-old or younger, it would have been like, have I made enough money? Or have I made a lot of money, I guess, right? And I don't know that I could have defined what a lot was at that point. But that, I think in American culture particularly, that's sort of how many people define success. I think as I've evolved over time, I sort of tend to put success into buckets that I value. I mean, one of those is relationships. So I try and invest heavily in relationships. I love to meet new people. I love to reconnect with people that I, already have a relationship with. And I really love to keep close to me the people that are very, very important to me. And I've been fortunate to have a lot of great people that I surround myself with or try to surround myself with. So keeping those relationships healthy, I think, is important. I think physical fitness to me has always been important. Growing up as an athlete, it was very important to me, but I also found that it's not just about athletics. A lot of it is mental health for me. Like I use physical fitness as a very important tool in, keeping my mental health strong.
I loved our episode with Damon, just the perspective on moving from Microsoft to a middle school teacher. I have a middle schooler now, and my admiration just increased and increased and increased. And now we're going to hear from Mindy.
It has changed a lot. One of the things about growing up with the background that I grew up in is that you feel that you always need to hustle for your worth because nothing's sort of given to you. You just need to assume that you need to work as hard as you possibly can for as long as you possibly can and get her done. Like that is my top value. It has been my top value always. My say-do ratio is really high. So that drove the first 3/4 of my career, right? Like get it done, keep pushing. And I lived with this belief that as long as I worked very, very hard, I would get to what I needed to get to, right?
Sure.
And what I've learned as I've gotten older is that's not true. It's completely not true. So for me, success now, I still have that like get her done in me, right? It's so deeply ingrained. It's really hard to let go. I have to fight against it, honestly, a lot.
Yeah.
But success for me now, am I leading a team in a way where I am treating people with respect and grace? And do I have enough time in my life that I can take care of my own physical and mental health? And can I take care of this young human? I've got a 16, almost 17-year-old son that I'm going to launch into the world. And am I actually teaching him good habits about balance between work and what your life looks like?
Yeah. That role modeling
Yes.
as a parent, that's something Yvette and I have talked a lot about, and finding that balance in the later years of our career being so terribly important, not only for ourselves and our own enjoyment, but for
examples that we're setting
Totally.
for those around us. So,
Totally.
One of the things that Mindy's talking about is, I think, one of my biggest misconception, which is you have to work hard to do it. And it's not necessarily true. I mean, we know, but like the working smart, but then another thing that we heard a lot, which keeps resonating with me, is the abundance.
yes.
Work smart,
Mm-hmm.
put the right things out there. It's not so much about how hard you work, but what you're actually doing and achieving.
Yeah, I mean, for those Gen Xers out there, I don't know if you heard what I did from my family, but it was really about work ethic and working hard. And when you do, you'll get what you deserve. You'll get what you want. And, you know, I think what we're finding is that's not necessarily always true.
Yeah.
No. Next, you're going to hear from Sadie, who talks a little bit about her definition of success changing and what it is now, which is really around agency over the choices and decisions she makes, as well as the
I'll
importance of
start by saying what I thought success was is not what I believe it to be today. So, and I think that goes for so many people, you know, the traditional, I got the grades to go into university, I got a good grades at university, I got a good job, a kind of a good career path, I got like a good partner, I bought a house. And all of those things were, you know, what I thought, and many people do think success was, but today, and again, like just through all of the kind of mining of myself that I've done, it's much more around agency. Like I am now, I feel I have a high sense of success in my life because I have choice. And I don't mean you know, I have the privilege of making this choice or that choice. I mean that I have the awareness of the choices I'm making in my life, whether they are in alignment with the things that matter to me. For example, continual learning and growth is something that is really important to me. So success for me means that I'm in a position where I continue to learn, I continue to grow, I continue to develop the potential that I think I have. Success for me also means having very connected relationships. So, you know, through all this, I've done a lot of work around being present, pausing, reflecting, and through all of that, I'm a much better communicator with the people I have in my life. And so I'm much more fulfilled in the relationships that I have. Connection is one of those things for me, which is a big demarcation of success, is do I feel connected to the people that matter to me in my life?
I love the emphasis on connections. When we're, you know, kids, easier to make friends. Everyone is, you don't need to think about it oftentimes as a success. But as you get older, as you move around, it becomes harder and the connections become more meaningful. It's harder to get there.
Yeah.
It's harder to maintain. Everyone is super busy. We no longer just spend, you know, 4 hours at a play date playing whatever it is. I played Barbies. I don't know what you played, but that is harder as we get older. And for me, it's starting to become more and more of a priority. Is one more thing that, not one more thing that I need to do. It's one more thing that I want to do. So the connections become harder, become more valuable, at least for me.
They do, absolutely. Well, and you add technology and social, you know, media and AI, and it just creates that disconnect that we all need to overcome. So Sadie's words are very wise. Our last clip in the section is from Paul, and he talks about how his definition of success is similar to many, which is from this cool gigs in a big bank account towards finding that abundance and that fulfillment in his everyday life.
Over your career or before?
Yeah, so I think like so many people, as I was growing and getting started in the world, success has a tendency to look like, do I have the cool gigs and what's my bank account look like?
Right.
You know?
Right.
That's what most people sort of recognize as success or lack of. And there's nothing wrong with having success in that way. I have found for me, I'm focusing much more on what is the experience I'm having? Is this fun to do? And approaching everything through curiosity, and not being so attached to what's the certain outcome that I'm trying to get to, but I know I'm going in this direction. I'm dying to know what's going to happen next.
Tina, I love how these clips highlight the shift from material success to personal growth and impact. It's a journey many of us can relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. And it reminds us that it's okay for our definition of success to evolve as we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So getting it more into the tips for closing the year and starting anew. Great time to reflect on our own success journey. Some tips that we heard, we're gonna share that and reflect on that. This is an opportunity to stop. Again, thinking about Sadie's episode, and she talked about a lot about autopilot. This is a great opportunity to turn that one off and think about the next year.
100%. The first clip you're going to hear is from Angela, and her tip centers around writing down your goals. I mean, we're in that New Year's resolution phase right now, so let's get out there and write down what we want to manifest for 2026.
Oh, write down your goal.
Write down the goal.
Write it down. Gosh, I wish I knew that stat, but how much more likely we are to accomplish that goal when we write it down. And I'm looking at my calendar on the wall right now, which is a very large, takes up half the wall. But I have, at the end of the year, I have my goal for the year, along with each quarter written down. And I look at that every single day. And I think writing things down are really powerful, but I also think voicing it out loud to somebody else. You know, when I started mental fitness, right, or mental endurance, when I was training for a marathon, you have a program, right, and you're following it, and you have to be extremely dedicated to it. But I also found a lot of power in telling. In order to accomplish that goal, I had to voice to friends and family, I'm training for this marathon, right? It's easy to like tell somebody something exciting that you're doing, but it's even harder. Let's say you have a weight loss goal, which I've also been through that journey, and being able to tell people, you know, I have this goal and I'd really love for you to support me in it, and helping bring them along in that journey. I think there's so much power in that vulnerability, and that's the same vulnerability we bring into the FIF community of being able to tell people out loud, what are you trying to do, so that we can all use our time and intention in the most meaningful way to help one another.
I met Angela through Females in Food, which is an organization that she set a goal 5 or 6 years ago to start. And I think Angela has proven that setting a goal is meaningful, because she's now 5 years later global organizations for females in food, which is part of where I get my new connections, which I'm prioritizing for 2026.
I love that. It's a great resolution.
Yes. And next we're going to talk with we're going to hear from Angie about finding your path to fulfillment.
I'm wondering, is there any tips or advice that you would give to folks in their early or mid or even later career when it comes to decision making, prioritizing, anything like that? Any tips that you'd share with our audience and our listeners?
Yes, it's a bit of a summary of some of the things that I covered before. So number 1, bring your authentic self, but read the room.
Okay.
Choose the road less traveled.
Okay.
Whenever you have the opportunity, choose the road less traveled. That is how you grow. And figure out what's important to you and take calculated risks.
Yeah.
Like, if you like follow your dreams and do all those things, okay, but like make sure you have a little bit of financial stability too, right? Like don't compromise every other aspect of your life to follow your career dreams and your success, because remember that success is not just defined by your career.
Absolutely.
Your value as a human is not just defined by your career. It's not defined by any one aspect of your life.
Yeah.
So those are
great
those
tips.
are my tips.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of knowing Angie for a few years as our paths crossed at United Health Group, and she is a very authentic person, and she is her authentic self, but she also knows how to read the room. And she has also followed the path less traveled. She's made a few different career changes here recently and has been following her heart ever since.
Yeah. And next, we're going to hear from Jess, how she defines success for herself, and she helps other people through her book Soul Salary to help them not so much define their success, but help them live their definition.
First and foremost, define it. You know, everyone kind of runs. What I have noticed in coaching and from friends and coworkers is people will go and make decisions or changes or none at all without having any reflection. And also, by the way, making no changes is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Continuing to live the life you live and being unhappy in it is also a choice. But also trying to make new paths and everything without defining what success is to you will most likely result in disappointment, right? And so the first thing you need to do is define what success means to you. And I'll give you a practical way to do that. In my Soul Salary book, there is an exercise that is the what are you most proud of to date? And this is not meant to be the obvious ones. It's not meant to be the weddings or the births or the big promotion, right? Like those are great, but what are you personally most proud of in your life? And again, I'm not talking about what society would say is the most impressive or what your parents would say is the best thing you've done. What are you personally most proud of? That gives such a beautiful insight into what you feel like a successful life is.
What I love about Jess's advice is it's so basic but so important that, and I think we heard themes from other guests who say, you know, it's what my parents wanted or it's how I was raised. And she really encourages us to define it for ourselves, the definition of success.
Yeah, and one thing that I would add to that, Jess is one of the first people I talked to when I decided to leave, or if I was thinking about leaving, and she told me, which really is part of what she's saying, don't follow anyone that doesn't know where you're going. And I love also the emphasis on think about how do you know. So a lot of time I work with teams with individual and, you know, we go through like, why, and, you know, oh, because X, Y, Z. And to me, one of the questions is like, how do you know? Which helps kind of dig deeper into, oh, this is, how do I know? Oh, my parents told me. That's what I saw my colleagues do. So just pausing and asking also, how do you know?
Yeah, so important. It goes back to being on autopilot too, what Sadie talked about as well. Like we have to get out of that and we have to really use that time for self-reflection. I love that. The next clip that you're going to hear is from Yvette, and she gives us a tip around making sure that we're evaluating our shoulds.
If there was one thing, I would say start thinking about the shoulds as they relate to your career. So some things you need to do, some things you want to do. Some things are neither, yet we should do them. So even thinking about I should be a director. I should be a manager of people. I should be better at my job. I should be doing XYZ is really breaking those into the wants and needs and identifying the ones that are, no, I don't really want them, or we don't really need them. And we're doing them because of inertia, or because that's what we heard, or this is what you do, or this is how you do it, where I'm pretty sure almost everyone can find something in their should bucket that can be removed. And that's relevant for career and personal life and everything. So really starting to identify the shoulds and removing them. My friends are sick of me saying all of these things, so sorry, friends. But it's a big one for me. Yeah. Again, I work on it in a personal, from personal side, and also in corporate. I hear so much shoulds, because that's how things are done.
That's right.
So encouraging teams to pause, both from a personal standpoint and as they're working on their just work stuff. Stop and ask about the shoulds.
Absolutely.
Just kind of like this, also closing this room.
Yes. All right. Well, we are getting ready to wrap up our episode for today. We hope that this discussion, this kind of journey backwards and looking at some of our previous episodes, help you reflect on your own journey and inspires you to continue to define success on your own terms. We really appreciate you joining us today. This also concludes the first season of Success Your Own Way. So we hope you've enjoyed it. And please don't forget to subscribe for more insights. And until next time, keep striving for that success that fulfills you. We're going to leave you with a clip from our very first guest of this first season of Success Your Own Way, and that is from Andy. And he talks a lot about his health journey, and we hope it inspires you as much as it has inspired us.
I'll go with my latest definition, if you will, as opposed to how I may have defined it before. I define it as well. I'll just go there. I mean, I'm a person of faith, and so I have a sense that there is a higher power out there. As my oldest daughter says, I love this, like, as opposed to any particular dogma, if you will, or even a particular religion. She says, I just think there's something going on. I'm like, yes. Like I could buy into that. If I was still on Facebook, I would probably list that as my official religion. There's religion. There's something going on. Like, I can't quite explain it, but there's some sort of power out there. So that's just the honest answer, is that I am a person of faith, and especially after, well, for all these years, but going through stage 4 cancer, I do come back to that as a sense of like, God/powers of the universe. Am I lining up with what I'm supposed to do with this precious, as Mary Oliver says, what will you do with your one wild and precious life? I check in on that every day, because frankly, my mortality is in front of me every day now. And I don't mean that in a morbid, like, oh no, kind of sad way, usually, although that's there too, but really like great, let's get up today. How can I be successful today? And how can that line up to the success that I want to have for the rest of my life, as long or as short as it might be? And so for me, it is checking in with, how am I doing, lining up with what I sense God's will is. Also checking in with myself and my body, frankly, which is kind of newish for me, is instead of intellectualizing things or even, feeling into it, also just saying, does that feel right? Like, does this resonate with me? Just, as my therapist reminds me, your body is always in the present, which I just think is so brilliant. And to be able to say, yeah, check in with that. Yeah, does this feel right? Like doing a podcast with these folks? Like, yeah, that seems good. Like that lines up with part of what I really want to do now with the rest of my life, which is reach more people with my message and my story, so that their stories can, feel more permission, if that's what it is, to come out. There's also, I can't remember if it's Brene Brown or somebody else who said that, when we share our stories, we give other people, and vulnerably, we give other people unconscious permission to do the same, right? And so I really want to do that. And the final thing I'll mention about success, I feel like this was a much more complicated answer than I planned on, but I'm okay with that. And hope your listeners and you are. What I would say is, coming back to that, the people on that small card, right? We are, part of what I've experienced, especially through cancer, is we're all so much more connected actually than I think we realize. I certainly felt that, and people tend to come out of the woodwork, especially when we're struggling, to support us. And those people who know me and support me and believe in me, and those people on that small card, I can check in with them, and when I'm not sure, and just say, I don't know, does this feel like anything? Or, back to something very present and realistic today, post something on LinkedIn. And it's not a perfect lineup, of course. We could make posts that go viral and maybe aren't so much in our essence. But if the people that I really respect are giving me comments back, or texting me, or saying, hey, I saw what you did there, it really resonated, that just helps that virtuous cycle that I feel about that is success for me.
Thank you for joining us on Success Your Own Way. We hope you found this episode inspiring and took away actionable insights. Please tune in for our next episode, and if you know someone who is rethinking what success looks like in their life, please share this episode with them.